Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Amber Rose, also known as the Religious Hippie. You can basically follow me on any social media platform. Just type in the Religious Hippie, and you will find me. So today we're going to be doing a February Q&A and my cat is trying to break into my room. That's me. Can you go away? I'm trying to film a video. Alright, so like I said originally, this is a Q&A episode, so I'm going to be answering some of your questions. Per usual, if you guys don't already follow me on my Instagram, that is where I usually put up a questionnaire where you guys can ask your questions. You can also go over to my TikTok, and there is also a question option on my profile where you can ask me questions, and I will do my best to answer them in a reasonable amount of time. Anyways, like I was saying, happy Sunday everybody. Today I have a mocha of some kind. I don't know, I made it. And it's basically just regular Dunkin' Donuts coffee. And I put hot chocolate mix in it. And then I just blended all of that together with some almond milk. Tastes like a mocha to me. Apparently not a lot of people like it because it's not sweet enough for them. I don't really like my coffee super sweet. So it's perfect for me, but yeah, iced mocha as a little treat today. You know, one thing I hate about Instagram is the fact that when your story disappears, especially if you have questions on it or something, it basically disappears forever. Like, you're not going to find those people's questions again. And that's exactly what I'm dealing with right now. I wrote the questions down, but like I would like to actually put your questions up on the screen, but being the dum-dum that I am, I forgot to screenshot them. We're just gonna have to deal with me just saying the questions, I guess. But that's no fun. Let me just make sure I didn't screenshot them and then forget, because my memory is terrible. Nope, I guess they're gone forever. So I'm just gonna have to read them. I apologize. So, our first question is, how do you decide which devotions to do? So this is actually fairly easy. I think, okay, for example, let's say that I'm suffering from anxiety, depression, or just mental illness in general. I would start a devotion to Saint Dymphna. She's the patron saint of mental illnesses. Let's say that my patience needs a reality check. I will start a devotion to Our Lady, whichever Marian apparition that I am most connected with, kind of thing. So yeah, you could do it like that in general. Pick a devotion where the saint or the Marian apparition or whoever you pick, you know, you have a connection with, or you really need their intercession for their individual patroness, whatever it might be. I would highly, highly suggest doing the consecration to Jesus through Mary and doing the consecration to Saint Joseph. If you guys have not done those already, highly beneficial. I already did the Marian consecration. It changed my life. It is amazing. I highly suggest it. And I am currently doing the Saint Joseph consecration. So I'm really, really enjoying the Saint Joseph consecration. I thought I knew so much about Saint Joseph. I thought I loved Saint Joseph. And then I read this book. I love him 100 times more. I have learned so many things about him. It just blows my mind. So I highly suggest those, and I hope that helps. Okay, next question. How do you study your Bible? Do you do groups or do you study it by yourself? So, kind of both. Currently, I'm following along with the Bible in a Year with Father Mike Schmitz. I'm not doing it as hardcore every single day, just because it's very hard for me to keep up, but I do my best to read scripture every single day, and then when I can listen to Father Mike Schmitz, a Bible in a Year podcast, I will catch up with that. So that's really beneficial and great. I actually did a whole video on how I study my Bible, basically just an overview, some tips, just some things to help you better study your Bible. But besides that, I wish I had a Bible study group that was led by a priest, you know, like in person. But I don't. So the Bible in a Year by Father Mike Schmitz, I highly suggest it. Mocha break. Okay, our next question is, when did you realize the importance of modesty as a practicing Catholic? If you guys have watched my modesty videos, you guys are aware that I think modesty is super important as a Christian woman, and I think it should be a big part of all of our lives for those of us that want to be respected and liked for our personalities and not our bodies. So for me personally, I realized that modesty was important when I got the wrong type of attention from men. I didn't want them to look at me in a lustful way, and yet I was dressing in a way that made me lustfully attractive to them. When I started dressing more modestly, I began getting a lot of compliments from men and women, like compliments that were literally amazing. I don't know how to describe it, but like when somebody says, oh hey, you're kind of hot, I don't like that. That's disgusting and it completely turns me off. Like just in general, like from friendship, from just anything. I'm like, huh. When I started dressing modestly, I started attracting the right kind of people in women and men. Other women who actually dressed modestly. We would talk about, you know, our modest outfits and what she liked to wear, what I like to wear, our different styles, etc. And when the men would compliment me, they're like, oh, you look really put together, or wow, you look really beautiful today, etc. Stuff like that. Stuff that's not creepy and stuff that's not going to attract the wrong kind of attention. So when I dress modestly, people are actually seeing me. They actually like me for my personality. And I'm not saying when you dress modest, you have to dress frumpy. There are adorable modest outfits out there that you can look so put together and well dressed, and they're not even going to notice it's modest, honestly, because it just looks so put together. But like I was saying, when I started dressing modestly, people started seeing my personality. They started liking me because of me, not because of the clothes I wore or because of my body or anything. And because of that, I actually ended up gaining so many virtuous friends. And it's interesting how all of that works. I don't like the law of attraction. That is completely stupid. All I'm saying is that we need to dress respectfully for ourselves, because when we respect ourselves, other people will respect us. But in a Catholic sense, dressing modestly really helps me imitate Our Lady and her humbleness, her femininity, and I mean just in general her modesty. So hopefully that answers your question. Okay, so our next question is, how do you stay chaste in relationships? The first thing I want to say is that it needs to be mutual. You both have to agree that you want to stay chaste in your relationship, especially if you had previous intercourse or just in general stuff like that. It needs to be both of you agreeing to it. It can't just be one-sided or it's not going to work. Communication and boundaries are super important. If they respect you as a human being and they want to marry you and have a future with you, they should respect this decision and see it as a good growth, and it'll like, you know, just growth in general for your relationship, growing towards God, etc. And they should agree and be all for it. So the third thing I'm going to say is that you will be tempted to go farther many times. It's just going to be there. That's how we are as humans. Like, it's just, that's how it is. But you guys need to be strong-willed, where if one of you somehow falls short, fails, gets weak, the other person in the relationship can be like, no, like we made this commitment to stay chaste. We need to stick to it. You guys really need to have a really trusting relationship where if one of you does become weak in a moment or something, as I mentioned before, then the other one can be strong for both of you. I will say it is super hard to find a partner nowadays who has that type of self-control in men and women. I'm not just talking about one or the other, but they are out there, and some people are willing to change for the people they love. However, I would highly suggest the book, How to Find Your Soulmate Without Losing Your Soul. Obviously, as Catholics, we do not believe in soulmates. However, this book is super, super beneficial for single women, women in relationships, whatever, who need just help and kind of just a idea of what to look for in a man, like a holy, virtuous man. Also look to Saint Joseph, who is an amazing example of how men should be. So I highly suggest that. The other thing I will say is that if your partner doesn't respect you, if your partner keeps pushing boundaries, keeps pushing over lines, and it's more of one of those things where he's just like, well, how far can we go? Or anything like that, dump him. Dump him. If he's not willing to respect you in a relationship, he will not respect you in marriage, and it's just a bunch of red flags. So definitely keep that in mind, and I hope that helps. All right, our next question is, how do I learn to trust and rest in God? Great question. This comes with a lot of time, devotion, and prayer. I struggled with this, honestly, a lot. Not so much the trusting part, but a lot of the resting, just knowing that I could rest in God. I don't know if that makes sense. But I went to my priest and I told him about this. Like, I'm really struggling trusting God in the sense of like resting. Like, I feel like I have to do everything and everything needs to be done and I have to be the one to do it. And he gave me these 5 words that totally changed my life. Jesus, I trust in you. So, whenever you're feeling down, whenever you're feeling stressed, whenever you feel like you don't trust God, repeat those 5 words as many times as you need until you feel better. Another thing I did that actually really helped me in that area was I started praying the Divine Mercy Chaplet, and which is kind of like that whole Jesus, I trust in you thing. You know, we say, Jesus, I trust in you, Jesus, I trust in you constantly. And I started praying that really devoutly and regularly with relevant radio and just on my own. And that has really, really helped me in my relationship with Jesus and God and just obviously Jesus is God, you know what I mean. And it has just really, really helped in that area. Another thing I would suggest doing is get to know the saints. Their stories are so inspiring to know how they walked with God, and even in the darkest of their lives, they still somehow had all of this courage and trust in God and His plan. And I just think that is so inspiring, and so I would highly suggest getting to know some saints. Getting a book on saints. I have this book here. I absolutely love it. The illustrations are so whack. I love them. I'm a graphic designer, so in general I love like crazy abstract illustrations, and this book I absolutely love. But in general, it has a lot of stories about the saints, and I just think that's really great. Also, if you have kids, this book is amazing. Other than that though, yeah, you can just honestly Google the saints as well. Totally fine, but highly suggest looking into the saints. Alright, our next question is, what is your daily prayer routine? Oh yeah, I gotta do an updated prayer routine. I forgot about that. Anyway, so my prayer routine is a lot more realistic now than it was when I last did my daily prayer routine video, because then somehow I was able to balance all of that and however many hours of prayer time that was in a day. But now it's a little more realistic just because this class is absolutely kicking my butt and I have a lot of responsibilities. So this is basically my updated prayer routine now. So first thing in the morning, I get up, I douse myself in holy water, and I make the sign of the cross. And then I have a crucifix over here that I kneel in front of, and I say 3 prayers. I'm going to put them on the screen here. You can pause to read them. And then the bottom one is the morning offering, so that's a really, really important one. And then after that, I do my consecration to St. Joseph. I read the chapter in my consecration to St. Joseph. And then I also have Every Day with Mary and then A Month with Mary. So like those 2 books are like devotional books where I walk with Our Lady throughout the year and then throughout the month and stuff. And I love that. So I do those as well. And then at 3 p.m. I do my best to pray the Divine Mercy Chaplet or the Rosary. If it's the Divine Mercy Chaplet, I will pray with relevant radio at 3 p.m. Central Time. If it's the Rosary, I'll just do it on my own, no biggie. And then at night, I say 3 Hail Marys, the Guardian Angel prayer, and then the St. Michael prayer. If you need to spice up your prayer life, you can start a novena, a consecration, a devotional, whatever it might be, and those will kind of like change up your prayer life a little bit. Alright, and our next question is, do I need to specify how many times I committed a sin in confession? Yes. We need to make sure that we, to our fullest knowledge, confess how many times we did the sin and what the sin is. Like, you can't just say, like, let's say your sin is gambling, okay? You can't just say you fall under the sin of greed. Like, oh, Father, I've been greedy. No, you have to say, Father, I gambled X many times. Okay? Does that make sense? We want to be as accurate as possible. That is super important, super humbling, etc. I made a whole video on how to examine your conscience and everything, so definitely go check that video out. I think that'll really help. So, I hope that helps. Alright, our next question is, do you know of any saints who kept journals? Yes, I think the two most popular ones are going to be Saint Therese of Lisieux and Saint Faustina's diary. Those are probably going to be the most common, I want to say. I mean, there are the Saint Augustine confessions and stuff like that, but off the top of my head, those are the only ones I can think of. Prayer journals, though, totally, like, 100%, I love them. The Imitation of Christ, it was said that it was written in front of the Holy Eucharist during adoration, so in a way, that is kind of like a journal, sort of. But yeah, that off the top of my head, that's what I got. Alright, on to our next question. Is once saved, always saved biblical? And can you go into it? Great question. This is a huge one. And no, once saved, always saved is not biblical. Surprise! So the people who believe that once saved, always saved is real are the ones who believe that baptism basically forgives past sins, present sins, and future sins. Now, as Catholics, we know that baptism, it forgives original sin, which every person is born with from Adam and Eve. Thanks, Mom and Dad. And it forgives past sins, but it does not forgive future sins, because once we're baptized, we still have free will, so we have the choice to still rebel against God and His commandments. And this is where the sacrament of reconciliation, where Jesus comes through the priest to forgive our sins, is so important. Alright, now, once saved, always saved is wrong because salvation is not a one-time deal. It is past, it is present, and it is future. As Catholics, we are certain of our salvation because we're a part of God's church. We have the sacraments, and as long as we live a truly Catholic life, we can make it to heaven. Or purgatory if we need a little buffing out before we get to heaven. But we are certain of our salvation. Now, some people might bring up John 10:28, where Jesus said, nobody will be able to take you away from God. Totally true. This verse is basically explaining that nobody can take you away from God or God's grace. They can't throw an Uno reverse card at you and suddenly you lose your salvation. No. However, while nobody else can take you away from God and His graces, you yourself can sever that relationship with God through sin. Nobody else can do it. You can do it, though. In general, Jesus tells His disciples that they need to stay in His love. And this is in John 15:6. So if salvation was a one-and-done deal, like a one-time thing, why does Jesus tell them that they need to stay in His love? Some other good examples of this are Romans 11:22, Galatians 5:4, and 1 Corinthians 9:27. Now remember, Jesus said in Matthew 7:21, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, shall enter the kingdom of heaven, but he who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. So hopefully that helps with your question. I can't really go super in depth in this one video, otherwise we would be here forever. But I'm going to link a couple other resources below for you to go check out if you would like to learn more about this topic. Okay, and our next question is, what are some easy steps for me to turn my prayer life around? Great question. I actually have 5 tips for you. So let's get into those. Alright, number 1, the first thing that helped me at least was adding in visuals to my prayer time. This means pictures, icons, music, the fun stuff. And the reason I say that is because for me specifically, I'm scatterbrained. I mention this all the time on my Instagram stories. I am a scatterbrained person, so if I have something I can fixate on and basically have blinders on, it helps me focus in prayer and helps me picture it better, like I'm almost there. So that would be my first tip. So the second thing I would suggest is going to adoration at least once or more a week. This, in general, can just turn your whole prayer life upside down. It is so amazing to just sit there in the true presence of Jesus, present in the Eucharist. It is just amazing. So I highly suggest that. The third thing I would say is don't bite off more than you can chew. I see a lot of times people kind of go into 30-minute prayer routines a day, just like cold turkey, just like automatically, boom, 30 minutes a day, and they're not used to it, and they end up getting frustrated because they're not used to doing it for 30 minutes a day, and they fall off the bandwagon, they feel like failures, blah, 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 blah. My biggest thing is if you're not used to doing 30 minutes a day of prayer, that's fine. Start with 5 minutes. Start with that morning offering, and then do some night prayers, you know, and work your way up over time as your prayer life starts to get more interesting and intricate, etc. So I would say just don't bite off more than you can chew right away, otherwise you're going to get overwhelmed, stressed, and fall off the bandwagon. Number 4, get a prayer group. Even if it's just you and another friend, make sure they're a reliable friend. Get on Zoom, have a tea party or something, and, you know, pray the rosary together. Get people who are like-minded and super passionate about the faith like you are, and really just embrace that. Pray together. Get that group together. Start a prayer journal with everybody. I don't know. Just get a group together. Honestly, community is so important as Christians, and we really need to dig more into that, especially nowadays. So start an online Zoom Bible study, or an online Zoom this or whatever, or your family. Start praying the rosary with your family, but get that like community. And the last thing I'm going to suggest is something I've suggested earlier, but do the consecration to Jesus through Mary or the consecration to Saint Joseph. These are amazing consecrations, and the graces that come from them are just bountiful. So I would highly suggest doing that. Hopefully those tips help you, and I will be praying for you. On to our next question. What would you tell yourself 2 years ago? Good question. I would probably tell myself to be patient. That is a big one. I would probably also tell myself that I'm not going to know all the answers and to take it slow, and I probably won't know the answers in my lifetime. There is so much information on Catholicism that we will not be able to exhaust it in our lifetime. I would probably also tell myself to be more careful, that not everybody who calls themselves a Catholic is actually going to lead you on the path to heaven. I ran into quite a few people who considered themselves Catholic, but basically went against teaching altogether, and unfortunately hindered my own journey back into my faith. So that would also probably be a big one. I mean, it was a huge learning experience, so even though I wouldn't want to erase that, I would still really like to have not gotten so attached to some of those people where it's like I wish I could still talk to them and go get coffee with them or something, but for my own spiritual safety, I cannot. So probably those things. All right, and our last question is, what are the fasting exceptions? So if you haven't already checked out my fasting video, go ahead and do that. I kind of go through it a little bit. But the rule of abstaining from meat is binding on Catholics 14 and older. When it comes to the exceptions, the USCCB states, those that are excused from fast and abstaining outside the age limits include the physically or mentally ill, including individuals suffering from chronic illnesses such as diabetes. Also excluded are pregnant or nursing women. In all cases, common sense should prevail, and ill persons should not further jeopardize their health by fasting. So, I hope that helps. But we are still called to do penance. This does not mean that you're just off the hook if you have a mental illness or anything like that from doing penance or something. If you cannot fast from food, totally okay, especially if it's medical related or mental health related, then in those cases you can fast from technology, music, your favorite food. You can still eat food, but like fast from your favorite food kind of thing. So yeah, definitely check out my video below. I give you guys some examples of other things you can give up on penance, for penance. So yeah, I hope that helps. All right, well, you guys gave some great questions. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I love answering your questions and seeing what's on your minds, and in general, just talking with you guys I think is totally amazing. I love all of you, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!